You like that? Kirk Cousins shredded the Green Bay Packers last night, passing for 375 yards and 3 touchdowns. Cousins is currently 3rd in the league in passing yards and 6th in the league in total QBR. If the playoffs started today, the Redskins would be the 2nd wildcard team in the NFC. Max, has Kirk officially proved that he's a franchise quarterback?
The answer is no, and I take no pleasure in saying that, even though he plays for Washington and I'm a Giants fan, and that, colors the way you see things. But no, we sat down with Kirk Cousins at training camp this year when we were down in Washington and
very nice guy
in the area. Real nice guy, rooting for him, wish him the best. But I think what he's proven is that he's a real starting NFL quarterback. What we've seen in recent years, Stephen A., last couple of years, is even Osweiler's big contract was not a franchise quarterback contract. It was shorter in length and guaranteed money. Teams are starting to hedge because they realize just because that's the best available guy, and he will be in this offseason the best available free agent, doesn't make him a franchise quarterback like Andrew Luck or Russell Wilson or someone like that. So the answer is no. He is throwing it down the field better than he ever has. Instead of just dinking and dunking, he's having some success. We should keep in mind this is a contract year for him. But I don't believe he is a franchise-level quarterback.
Well, when we say franchise-level, do I think he's on the level of a Tom Brady or a Drew Brees or something? Of course not. But franchise-level in terms of being a perennial starting quarterback who goes out there and can throw for 4,000 yards for you and have a QBR of around 60 or better and make sure he's throwing about 25 to 30 touchdowns a year, I think Kirk Cousins has proven that he's capable of doing that, and he deserves his respect. This is where, and I've never been the biggest fan of Kirk Cousins, even though I agree with y'all. I met him. He seems a really nice guy. And I definitely, even though I can't stand him talking you like that and all of that other stuff, because that's a bad sign for me. Here's the deal. Kirk Cousins bet on himself. And my respect for him elevated exponentially when he bet on himself, was willing to sign for 1 year, $19.95 million franchise tag, and then he goes out there and he's doing what he's doing. Now, I do know a few cats on the Redskins who sat up there and say, yo, he's looking out for his numbers and trying to make sure that he, produces his necessary numbers because he wants to get that contract. But it doesn't negate the fact that they're winning games. They got a respectable record. If the playoffs were to begin today, they would be in it. He's their quarterback. And when you consider the fact that he's the immediate successor from the residue of an RG3, where he puts his head down, he goes out there and performs, and his best ability is his availability because he's always there. I gotta give respect.
I
want to define franchise quarterback, because often this comes up with Joe Flacco or Eli Manning. Are they elite? Forget about elite for a second. They're franchise quarterbacks in this sense. Their teams aren't looking. If Kirk Cousins is your quarterback, your team is still looking, can we do a little better? To me, that's not a franchise quarterback.
That's fair. Coming up next, Packers have now dropped 4 straight, losing to the Redskins 42-24, but there's more news off the field. In a column for the Bleacher Report, former and current Packer players were asked about Aaron Rodgers, and while most had only positive things to say about the former Super Bowl MVP, former tight end Jermichael Finley said Rodgers wasn't put on earth to lead and is self-centered. Another anonymous source in the article, who was close to Rodgers for years but has since been cut off by him, said Rodgers hasn't spoken to his family since December 2014, and the strain of his personal life is affecting his play on the field. Quote, there's no explanation for him playing any worse. People are trying to figure it out. He's a bleeping head case. He knows he's doing the wrong thing, and he's so arrogant and so prideful that he thinks he can separate himself from his personal life, from his professional life, even though all of us know that is impossible. Donovan?
Is
Rodgers the problem for this team?
Is he the problem? No. The defense is the problem, and the offensive play calling is the problem. What we've seen as far as the production is concerned, if you look at the numbers, Aaron Rodgers has played fairly well. Now, when you watch from the eye test, yeah, he's off, meaning he's missing receivers, little checks and things of that nature. He's off due to just decision-making. Now, off the field, yeah, we knew about the spat between he and his brother, because his brother ended up doing, I think, The Bachelor, and his name was brought up a couple times on the show. Nobody wants to be a part of that whole deal. As far as I think that was his assistant or so that he fired, whatever reason it may have been. Yeah, he had some issues with it. I know Jermichael Finley. I've talked to him many times about what's going on in Green Bay. And it's not the first time that I've heard that Aaron Rodgers was that way, but I've also heard that about other quarterbacks in the league as well. So it's nothing new to me. When I look at them as a football team, everyone talks about McCarthy. And I sat down and we talked a little bit on our show last night. I think Don Capers gets fired, the defensive coordinator, before they decide to part ways with McCarthy. This defense has been awful. I mean, I know that they've had injuries in the secondary, but there's no reason Clay Matthews should be looking this bad. Julius Peppers is about 35, 36 years old. He looks a little slow, but he looks as their best defensive player out there. And why is that? Maybe it's because of the play calling. They're not blitzing enough. They're putting their corners out on the island. Now you look at that game last night, and you're giving up on 3rd and 1, second and 5, and you're giving up deep balls to Crowder and Garcon and Deshaun Jackson. That has nothing to do with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was putting him in position to come back. If Cook didn't drop that ball after the fumble with Norman, we would be talking about what a great comeback that was, and possibly saying what's wrong with the Redskins, because their defense at times gives up too much. So I just think for Aaron Rodgers, on a personal issue, yeah, it could be weighing on him a little bit, not about his brother, but maybe about the situation that he has in front of him at this particular point with his fiance.
Let me chime in here and let me say this. First of all, the problem's not Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
The problem's Ted Thompson. Personnel that you got in terms of the depth chart is definitely Dom Capers. Mike McCarthy should have never had play calling duties taken away from him. He got it back this year. There are times where it's not obviously ideal, but for the most part, he does a good job with the play calling. Aaron Rodgers had a 115 quarterback rating last night. He didn't play shabby. It's just that Kirk Cousins played better because he was going up against that horrific secondary. I want to throw 3 names out here because I think it's important to point these names out. Quentin Rollins, Ladarius Gunter, and Micah Hyde. My brothers, y'all should be so ashamed of yourself. It was bad. I mean, they were horrible. I could not. I was like this. Damn, they wear an NFL uniform. I know they're not starters, but my God, Crowder and then Crowder again and then Garcon. I'm sorry, Crowder and then Garcon and then Crowder again. And this is unbelievably embarrassing. I mean, Kirk Cousins it was like just throwing. It was 7-on-7. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable how bad it is. So we know that Green Bay's defense is the problem because they're horrendous. There is no question about it. And Mike McCarthy has to assist Ted Thompson and other guys in getting that fixed. But here's the important point to mention, as far as I'm concerned, as it pertains to this segment. Jermichael Finley is wrong. That person who gave the anonymous quote is wrong. You don't talk about somebody's family. None of us, everybody here got problems with brothers and sisters from time. I know I do. Okay, trust me, I do. All right. The point is, it ain't everybody's business.
Right.
And the fact that, listen, I don't give a damn what Aaron Rodgers is going through. You don't have any business as a contemporary, as a player, as a colleague to be sitting up there, Max, and talking about how, well, you know what, you think he could separate the personal from the professional. Yes, you can. You can have problems at home and still show up to work and perform.
Some people can compartmentalize, some can't.
That's fine, but Aaron Rodgers, we've seen no evidence. According to his brother, these are things that have been happening, and his brother, by the way, had no business talking about his business either, but that's a different subject. The point that I'm trying to make to you is that, having said all of that, Aaron Rodgers' history as a quarterback shows he has the capability to go out there and perform. You don't bring up his personal family business to talk about his performance on the field. I think that's crossing the line.
I wanted to address that.
Jermichael
Finley is, yes, you shouldn't have brought up his family. I agree.
Right.
If you're an NFL player, as Donovan McNabb knows, when you add the practice squad and you add the coaching staff and everything, you're dealing with over 100 people on every season that you're interacting with and can watch you in some capacity, and there's turnover every season. Once you've been in the league 8-10 years, there are hundreds and hundreds of people who have some kind of knowledge of you, and the chances are a couple of them aren't going to be crazy about you, almost no matter who you are, particularly if you are a little standoffish or arrogant. So I know where there's smoke. And maybe something here applies to Aaron Rodgers. I'm not dismissing it out of him, but he shouldn't have brought up his family. And I think just statistically speaking, it's likely you're going to find someone like Jermichael Finley to talk out the side of their mouth about you almost no matter who you are. So that's one. Two, it's not Aaron Rodgers. It's the defense and the running game, really. They really don't have a running game. And the defense, as sometimes I think you'll go over the top, Stephen A. Smith. Not in this case. I think your outrage, your indignation is justified about this. That defense is not an NFL caliber defense. I forgot who was it, Collinsworth, who brought it up on the air the other day that that their best defender turns the other offensive player into like a Pro Bowl player.
Oh, they named about 4 of them. Well, quarterbacks had a plus 100
It's
QB rating.
unbelievable how bad the defense is. Now, is that coaching? Well, yeah, first of all, coaches got to put you in a position to succeed, and they're not doing that. And then players have to execute, and they're not doing that. This is what I want to bring up about Aaron Rodgers, okay? He is not what he was before the beginning of last season. Last season, or almost a little more than a season and a half, he's just been an elite quarterback, not the best player in football. But I want to point something out. This is where quarterbacks take the blame and the credit for team success. Eli Manning, 5-0 in his last 5 games, and I think we can all agree he's playing a good quarterback. I'm not saying he's playing MVP level, but he's a good quarterback. 5-0, Aaron Rodgers 0-4, and the sky is falling, right? Over that time, touchdowns to interceptions. Both have 12 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers has thrown 3 interceptions. Eli Manning has thrown 6. Completion percentage, Aaron Rodgers 64%, Eli Manning 63. QBR, Aaron Rodgers 74, which is elite. Eli Manning 68. The difference is Aaron Rodgers has been sacked 13 times, and he's much more mobile than Eli, obviously. Eli's been sacked 3 times over that time. So basically, Aaron Rodgers, in spite of playing on a much worse team at the moment, is doing a little better than Eli Manning, who's 5-0, and everyone would acknowledge is playing a good quarterback.
People don't think of Eli as the same level, so they look at that as a knock.
Yeah.
I know.
I was wondering why you even brought Eli Manning.
Because Eli is an excellent quarterback.
Okay.
He's not?
No.
How many Super Bowl MVPs you got?
Will you stop going to the Super Bowls?
Why? It's only the most
important thing. If you don't make the Super Bowl,
thing.
does he make the playoffs? His regular season numbers.
2-time Super Bowl MVP.
His regular season numbers don't even.
He plays in a windy place.
Don't even compare. For a team that in Aaron Rodgers, who they haven't made the playoffs, his numbers are way better than Eli Manning. So I wouldn't even compare those two. This is the problem that I have with it, and I've been a part of it. You know, when guys leave the team, all of a sudden they want to talk bad about the players that are still there. I've always had this issue with a lot of players I've played with, players that have left some other situations. I mean, perfect example, when Crabtree leaves San Francisco, and then he talks about Kaepernick, talking about him studying, talking about, you know, the type of player he was out on the football field. Everything was fine when you were playing with him. Now all of a sudden you leave and you want to sit there and just run your mouth. I always had a problem with that. And so for Jermichael Finley, no, you should not talk about anybody else's family. That's their business. The way they handle their business with their family is their business. But as far as the whole arrogancy and how he handles different things, he's not the first that have said that.
Well, I don't have a problem with anybody that's got something to say about Aaron Rodgers, the football player inside that locker room. Because
you did about Greg Jennings when Greg Jennings said
no, because Greg Jennings left and went to Minnesota, and initially he was complimentary about Aaron Rodgers, and then all of a sudden he goes to Minnesota and he spoke a different tune. And that's when I said, you don't do that, which is what you just pointed to. That's my point. I don't have a problem with any player talking about Aaron Rodgers. I played with Aaron Rodgers. This is who he is as a player inside that locker room. But you don't know about him and his family. And more importantly, if he did that to you, you'd be ready to jab, knock his head off. So I'm like, wait a minute, you don't do something like that. You crossing the line, not to mention the fact that for somebody that's got quote unquote family issues, Aaron Rodgers has been a hell of a lot more productive than Jermichael Finley ever was. Let's call it what it is.
He had an injury now. I mean,
I understand that.
But it does appear there's chemistry issues in that locker room.
I want to bring it back. Wait a minute. You guys are too quick to dismiss my brilliant Eli Manning point. The point is about...
If you said Tom Brady, I would have...
The point is... This is my point. The point is that when you take a good NFL quarterback, of course, the expectations for Aaron Rodgers is way above that. And when he exceeds the performance of a good NFL quarterback, that's not good enough for people because it can't make up for a bad defense and no running game. The point is Aaron Rodgers isn't the problem. That's the point.
We agree with that.
Yes.
But what you need to stop doing is bringing up Eli Manning. Hold on, let me finish. When you want to conveniently forget the fact that the man missed the playoffs 6 times in the last 7 years.
You want to do an Eli Manning segment right now?
I'm just saying. That's the point.
We could do that.
Later. We're going to get into the MCs later. And during the Packers'
disrespecting them, but 6 times?
losing streak, Aaron Rodgers leads the NFL with 12 TD passes. The other lesson of the day, don't talk about other people's families. We move on.